She faked a pregnancy, not once, but twice. She forged ultrasounds, filed child support claims, and nearly destroyed two men's lives in the process. Her name is Michelle Owens, and she's just been indicted on multiple felony charges for allegedly staging entire pregnancies to extort men, including allegedly a former Bachelor star named Clayton Echard. Let that sink in, because this isn't just one woman with Photoshop bad morals and an addiction to money. No, my friends, this is just the tip of an iceberg, one almost no one wants to talk about. The epidemic of fake pregnancies and paternity fraud that ruins men's lives every single year. The only real shocking part in this case is that she's actually being charged, because this is the exception, not the rule. And today, we're going to talk about how rampant paternity fraud is and why it needs to be taken more seriously, legally, morally, and ethically. Hey everybody, welcome back to Men Need to Be Heard, the channel where we talk about the things that no one else wants to touch when it comes to the issues that men and boys face in today's society. And if this is your first time on the channel, welcome. My name is Dan, and today I'm going to break down this case. We're going to show what really happened and why it matters. We're going to expose a legal system that gives liars the advantage, while men pay the price. Then we'll connect the dots to an even bigger issue, why the push for child support from conception would make scams like this explode overnight. Prosecutors in Arizona say Owens faked multiple pregnancies and then used them to file false paternity and child support claims. At one point, she told Echard she was pregnant with twins, provided ultrasound images, sent videos, and even filed for child support. But when investigators started digging, the evidence fell apart. They discovered altered medical documents, forged signatures, and digital manipulation of ultrasounds. Owens later claimed she had a miscarriage, but let's be clear about something. There is absolutely no medical record of any pregnancy at all. So now she's facing 7 felony counts, including fraudulent schemes, forgery, perjury, and tampering with evidence. If convicted, she faces between 3 and 12 years in prison, depending on how the case plays out. And I asked some legal experts that I know what they thought about the case, and they estimated there's roughly a 70 to 80% chance that she'll serve some prison time if the evidence holds up. More likely, though, they said if she takes a plea as a first offender, she'll probably get somewhere between 3 and 5 years, with time off, of course, for good behavior. That said, they also stated that if she chooses to go to trial and loses with multiple victims and all the aggravating factors, she could be looking at 8 to 12 years behind bars. Sure, that's serious time, and it's about time someone faced it. But I ask you, does that compare to 18 years of child support she was trying to extract from not one, but 2 men? Not to mention the pain and suffering those accused men went through? I'll leave that to you, the audience, to decide, but let's be clear here. This kind of fraud destroys lives, and even when it's caught, men rarely get justice. Now, contrary to what most people believe, what Lauren Owens allegedly did isn't rare. In fact, it's far more common than many people care to admit. As I said, the only real difference in this case is this is one of the few times we've actually seen some accountability. Fake pregnancies, false paternity claims, and fraudulent child support cases happen all the time, all day, every day. But they rarely make headlines. Why? Because men are just expected to deal with it. No one really got hurt. Yeah, sure. Okay. Depending on the state, a man can be named on a birth certificate. He can be ordered to pay child support. He can then lose tens of thousands of dollars in the process. All based on the word of the woman. Yes, he can petition to have a DNA test done, but many times judges won't grant that request. And often the man is tricked into believing he's the father for many years, at which point judges will say he is the now presumptive father and thus may be required to pay support. Which is why even when DNA later proves he is definitively not the father, many men are still required to support the child, a child that is not and never was theirs. It's literally the definition of the phrase crime does pay. And speaking of crime, did you know that in most states paternity fraud isn't an actual crime? More likely it's treated like a civil dispute, but lying about creating life for money, control, or revenge, that's not a dispute, that's a fraud. And the system enables it. In fact, I argue it encourages it by refusing to verify paternity before financial obligations are enforced. Let's talk about data. Studies on non-paternity events, which are cases where the presumed father isn't biologically related, show rates between 1 and 4% globally. Now, you might think that sounds like a small number, but here in the U.S., in a country of roughly 350 million, that's tens of thousands of men every single year being deceived or trapped by false claims. And those are just the cases we know about. More recent studies estimate that somewhere between 10 and 13% of the time, the man who is told he is the father isn't. Let that sink in. And as I said earlier, often these men don't find out for years, if not decades. The truth is, we don't really know how pervasive the issue is because most never get tested. And when a man does ask for proof, he's usually accused of being paranoid, controlling, or simply untrusting. But you know what's worse than actually asking for proof? Spending the next 18 to 21 years paying for a lie. And despite the fact that this problem is so well known and been well documented for many decades now, lawmakers have made it abundantly clear they simply don't care. Despite the fact that in cases where DNA tests are actually done, the results show the named father wasn't the father about 30% of the time, these lawmakers are quietly pushing one of the worst ideas imaginable: child support from conception. Now, while sure, it sounds nice on paper, I mean, support women during pregnancy. Who could argue with that, right? But here's the problem. Under proposals like the Unborn Child Support Act, a man could be forced to pay support before the child is even born, before any DNA test, before any verification, before there's proof the pregnancy is even real. So all it takes is the word of a woman and nothing more. It's believe all women on steroids. With one accusation, a woman can simply say, "I'm pregnant," and it's his. And suddenly, the court, the states, hell, even the local sheriff will hold him responsible. He's financially trapped, guilty as charged until he can prove his innocence. Because as has been shown time and again, the system isn't interested in truth, isn't interested in justice, and it certainly isn't interested in doing what's really best for the child. No, all it's interested in is how much it can collect from the man. Period. Now let's add cases like Laura Owens into that equation. If these laws existed when she made her false claims, her alleged victims could have been forced to start paying support for a fake pregnancy with no scientific verification. No protection for the men, no real chance to object. And when it turned out to be a lie, then what? Well, I'll tell you what, because it's played out in the courts many times before. There will be no restitution, no refund, no accountability. That's not justice, that's extortion backed by law. And the sad part is there's a simple objective fix for all of this. One, if she's claiming she's pregnant, prove it. Two, and this one is so simple, so easy to do, so cost effective that it boggles the mind it's not already the case, we require mandatory DNA testing at birth. Not to accuse, but to protect. Because it protects men from fraud. It protects women from false denials. And most importantly of all, it ensures every child knows the truth about who their real parents actually are, who their real father is. It's science. It's fairness. I argue it's equality. The only people who really oppose it are the ones who benefit from keeping the truth hidden, such as the mothers who reap the financial windfall, the judges in courts who get their cut of the same, and the states who fill their coffers with reimbursement money from the federal government under Title 4D. Money, by the way, that you supply every time you pay your taxes. Not to forget the lawyers who rake in billions over the battles that are fought every single day in family court. One simple change could make all of that go away. And yet, it's not even being considered. And here's a second piece to our little puzzle. We could make paternity fraud and false pregnancy claims felony offenses. Thus, if you forge documents, fabricate ultrasounds, or lie under oath to collect money or power, we could say that that's no longer a mistake. It's a crime. We prosecute identity theft. We prosecute insurance fraud. We prosecute financial fraud. Isn't it time we prosecute paternity fraud the same way? And let's be honest, if a man forged medical records, faked a pregnancy, or pretended to miscarry just to manipulate a woman, he'd be crucified. He'd be crucified in the courts. He'd be crucified in public. He'd be in prison. But when a woman does it, the media softens it. She's troubled. She needs help. She's just emotional. That's not equality. That's a double standard with a press pass. The Laura Owens case is a turning point. It's absolute proof that the system can hold the people accountable when it wants to. But it also shows how rare that accountability is and how much damage is done before justice ever arrives. Sure, I'll concede she could spend up to a decade in prison if convicted. But hundreds of thousands, probably millions of men have already spent decades paying for children that aren't theirs, with no recourse, no restitution, and no sympathy. This isn't about revenge. It's about fairness. It's about truth. It's about equality that actually means something. Because if men are going to be held financially responsible, then the women who commit reproductive fraud must also be held criminally responsible. There should be no double standards, no excuses, no out for the women. If you fake a pregnancy, forge a document, or lie about paternity, you should face real prison time, not get a fine or probation. So here's the takeaway. If we want to say we live in a society where truth matters, science matters, and fairness matters, then it is incumbent on us to do something about this. If we want real equality, we need mandatory DNA testing at birth and laws that make paternity fraud a felony. Because this isn't just about one case or one headline. It's about the thousands upon thousands of men who will never get their reputations, their money, or their peace of mind back. All right, as always, if you got value from this conversation, hit that like button and drop me a comment and let me know your thoughts on the subject. And share this video with someone else who might need to hear it. Yes, it does help the channel grow, which in turn raises awareness of the issues that men and boys face, and most importantly of all, hopefully sparks the real conversations and policies we need to address them. And men, if this message resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and stick around. I post every day to remind you, you're not broken, you're just becoming.